So I'm gonna start recording now. Okay, good. So we have Diksha here as well. That's good. I see Ariane. A moment. So I'm just give it a few moments for everyone to join.
Sir, what about the SBA?
Yeah, so that's the SBA component would be where you ask me a question or you require me to look over something, you send me it and I can review it for you. But the
Okay,
primary focus is past papers, but if anyone have any SBA questions, then they can ask me though.
all right, sir. Because just before this class, like I remember you sent me an email with the corrections.
Right?
We're just working on it right now. So can I send it back to you so you see it's all right?
Exactly. So when you send it back to me now, I can give it further feedback.
All right, no.
Right. Okay, welcome Ariane and Diksha. Are you there?
Nice.
All right, welcome. So what we're gonna be going through is, as I said, a little bit more focus on past paper questions. So I'm just gonna screen share. Here we go. And what I have prepared is something called a collection. That term might be new to you, but basically what a collection is, for example, valuable websites, right, that are applicable to English. I have 10 websites. I'll consider the collection after class, but the first website is gonna be focusing on answering poems, right? Because in an English exam, paper two, there's gonna be 4 sections. The first question is gonna be a summary question that asks you, for example, to create a 90 to 140 word summary on an interview or another medium. The second question, right, is gonna be an expository piece. The third question is gonna be a short story, and the fourth is gonna be an argumentative essay. You guys want to write that down? So let me go over it again. The first one, section A, you're gonna be asked to write a summary. Write down for me. The second one, you're going to be asked to write an expository piece. So let me just give you some example of expository pieces. Moment, here we go. So reports, minutes. Anybody know what minutes are in a meeting?
So basically like the duration of it.
Right? And the most important aspects of the meeting. So say, for example, there's a 2-hour meeting with staff members, right? A secretary wouldn't write every single minute of that meeting. She would write, or he would write, the most important aspects and tell me what time was it spoken, right? So that's what we call minutes of a meeting, the most important parts. And it sounds similar to a summary, right? So everything is connected. So let's go over it again. The first section, section A, summary. Section B, an expository writing. And I gave you 2 examples of expository writings to be reports and minutes. Right. The third question, the third section, section C, is a short story question, and the fourth section is an argumentative essay. Welcome, Priyanka. I'm just gonna quickly repeat what I was saying for since you just joined. So what I have is a collection on the right hand side. It has 10 valuable websites that we're gonna go through today that details the 4 sections of a paper 2. Right. Section 1, as I said, was summary. Say, for example, they give you a transcript of an interview that says you have a doctor and an interviewee or something of that sort, and you are asked to summarize it in, for example, 120 words. That would be a typical section A question. Section 2 now, section B, would say you have an expository piece to write. I gave 2 examples of expository pieces to be like when a secretary is writing minutes in a meeting, like staff meetings, or when you're asked to write a report on something, right? Like a school book report or anything of that sort. Section C now was a short story question where they typically give you like a picture or like a diagram and say create a 800 word or 400 word short story based on this picture, right? And the final section, section D, would be where you have to write an argumentative essay. You are given a scenario like a teacher is advocating for better classes or something of that sort, and you are to agree or disagree and give your points and validate it. So we're gonna go through each section step by step today. Sounds good?
Yes, sir.
All right, so the first section, and the reason why I like to go through these sections first is because it's the one students always think is the hardest, where you're given a poem and you ask some questions. And for the life of me, you guys take at least a half hour to 45 minutes. when really you can take 10 minutes and save enough time to work on section D, which would be the most demanding of the times, right? So let's try to work on our time management for the easiest section, which is just answering some multiple choice or just short answers from a poem. So Priyanka, read this poem for me.
Houses. People that live in these houses are not neighbors. They keep thick walls between them. The painted ones of block and mortar can be jumped by someone determined to get over. Flower beds, fringing, is that how you pronounce it?
Engine.
Fringing a small lawn, run along them like ornament. Then burglars bars of iron lacework stretch on it if he goes further. Those, though, can be pulled by cuts. The parapets that no one scales are never seen. They are forged of impregnable material shielding.
The Heart's Gate. Are you there? What happened? Hello? Oh, she left. Okay. Diksha, can you just continue? I'm guessing she'll be right back. Can you just continue where she left off? The parapets.
Yes, sir.
All right.
The parapets that no one scales are never seen. They are forged of impregnable material, shielding the heart's gate like plates of armor. No siege can conquer those defenses. Climbers who try slide down unbreakable glass. Privacy builds the barriers that repel every assault ventured across set borders. Griefs and celebrations kept tethered in their rightful compounds.
Good. All right. So I shouldn't be showing you the answer yet, but just look at the question for me. The first question, it says, so it's a lot of big words in this, right? So let's answer someone's question quickly before I go into the question. So these classes are meant for SBAs as well, so not to worry. Yeah. Okay, so someone is asking if we can work on SBAs in these classes. Yes, and I actually have plans to do that. But because you can tell we have 3 different form levels or 2, we have senior 3 and senior 4. I don't want to be biased and just focus on SBAs. So what I have planned is that for any query with the SBA, you're going to send me what you have, right? And then now I do something called reports, where I tell you every single instance of where your grades are allotted and how you could work on it. So it doesn't mean that we're gonna have like a whole class for the SBA, but I will be giving you feedback in a report, and then next class you come back and tell me what questions you have, okay? So let's ensure that you send me any issue you have with the SBA, my email, and I can give you a report in less than a half hour, because that's typically how I mark SBAs. I just give you a rough draft estimate of your marks and give you any grammatical error feedback. Okay, so based on this question, I see we have, wait, before I continue, let me just check if Priyanka is here again. Priyanka, are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm back. I'm having internet issues.
Oh, okay. Welcome, Fraser. Nice to meet you.
Hi, sir.
Hi. Okay, good. So what we're doing is we're going through a little poem, and let me just get some feedback. Do you guys actually understand what this poem is talking about? In other words, did you, when Diksha and Priyanka was reading it, did you actually get a sense of the story that is being told, or did you just see a lot of big words and you said, never mind, my brain can't process that? Be honest.
Sir, each paragraph was kind of different. Like I understood the first one, but like the second one, I got a little thrown off.
Right. Okay. So that's why now we break it apart and say the first question, what is happening in the first stanza? Stanza 1 is going to be here. What is happening here? Let's read it again. People that live in these houses are not neighbors. Keep in mind that the topic or the title is houses. They keep thick walls between them. The painted ones of blocks and mortar can be jumped by someone determined to get over. Right. Can you get a little clearer picture now? Can someone describe what is happening in the first stanza? Let me pick on Arian. Tell me what you get from just hearing the title, houses, and what is being spoken of in the first stanza.
I'm gonna read it once and then tell you, sir.
All right, give you a moment. Two marks. So typically they would give you 2 marks for this question. All right. It could be
Sir,
figurative or literal, but just tell me what you understand or what you think is being spoken of. Anything.
is it saying like the neighbors don't like each other? That's why they have thick walls between them.
Okay, so that's a literal that's a literal meaning. So whenever you infer something just from what is written about it, that's called literal investing. So you're not really looking behind the curtains. So when you look behind the curtains and say, well, what could they mean by phrasing like this? That's what we call figurative understanding. So let's look at what the typical answer would be. So here, the poet is describing. So you're gonna be very general. Don't try to understand a deeper meaning. Just tell me what is happening. The poet is describing people, hence the term neighbors, right? The houses they live in and the means by which people try to ensure their safety. Hence where they say they put blocks and mortars so people cannot jump over, right? The two features associated with this are walls and burglar bars. So we call this the literal meaning of stanza 1. The figurative meaning, or you could say it is alluding to a war or like a battle. But you could just tell me the literal meaning that, hey, we have neighbors, right? And one of the neighbors are trying to keep the other out by using walls and burglar bars, right? And that would give you your 2 marks there.
But sir, for the burglar bars, isn't that mentioned in the second paragraph and not the first?
Let's go back up 1 second. Here we go. So people that live in these houses are not neighbors. They keep thick walls between them. Painted ones of blocks and mortar can be jumped by someone determined to get over. Right, it is mentioned in the second line. So really you could just say mortar then, because we did say walls and mortar. Anyone know what a mortar is?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. So you could replace that burglar bar with mortar and it still be the same effect. All right. Second question. It says, say in your own words what the poet is speaking about in stanza 2 and give its main characteristics. Okay. Stanza 2. Let's read it again. Flower beds fringing a small lawn run along them like ornate hems. Then burglar bars of iron lacework stretch a net if he goes further. Those, though, can be holed by cuts. I know it's very easy to get misunderstand with regards to how does the first stanza relate, but what do you think is being spoken of here? This the literal meaning. Let me pick on, let's go on Karen. So remember, we're not talking about any hidden meaning. Same as though we dissected the first stanza by just telling me exactly what is being said by phrasing it differently. Tell me exactly what's happening in the second stanza.
Sir, I'm gonna just read it for a second and then I'll answer you.
All right.
Sir, so first it's basically describing like how like their backyard is with like flower beds, and then they're talking about the burglar bars and how they kind of mess up the flower beds, I would say.
Right, right. Okay, good. So I like the fact that you detailed visually where exactly flower beds are. You didn't just say, oh, he's talking about flowers. You tell me that he's talking about the fact that the flowers are in his backyard. That's good. But let's look at exactly how you structure this. Here we go now. The poet is speaking of human beings who treasure their privacy, never allowing others to get close to them. They shut out others, not with walls, but with emotional barriers, and refuse to get to know others and to share in their joy and pain. Now, here's what I meant when I said the figurative meaning. So the literal meaning was that, hey, there's houses, and the guy is preventing others from reaching inside by using walls and mortars. But now the figurative meaning, when we say stanza 2, is the fact that emotionally he's keeping others out by with his figurative walls, so to speak. Understand? So if they try to get any further, right, it will stop them in their tracks. Right? The zoom thing is very okay. Flower beds fringing a small lawn, run along them like ornate hens. Then burglar bars of iron lacework, stretch a net if he goes further. So if the person tries to get close to him, right, he has burglar bars to ensure that they can't, emotionally, so to speak. Right? So whenever you hear a question asks you about, say in your own words, not just from the poem, it's asking you to give a figurative meaning, to understand deeply what is exactly being spoken of, right? But if it says no, what is the poet speaking of, you have to tell me the literal meaning. Does that make sense, everybody? Let me go over it one more time. If a question says, what is this poet speaking about? You're writing about the literal definition. But when the question asks you, right, in your own words, here's it, in your own words, you're gonna infer and write a figurative meaning based on how it makes you feel. That's how we talk about emotional barriers. So that's a big error or a mistake some students make, right? They always think, oh, because it says my own words, it's literally just saying, oh, write exactly in my own words what is happening in the story. But it's really asking you to infer, right, and make a judgment. Okay, the third question. In what way does the poet relate stanza 1 to stanza 2? Right? Let's go back to stanza 1. Right? These two stanzas, how do they relate to each other? Let me ask Priyanka.
Sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
How does the two stanzas, the first one that was literally just talking about the fact that they're trying to keep up walls, and the second one that talks about the fact that you have burglar bars and different flower beds to prevent them from going any further, how do they relate to each other?
Because like they relate to each other because they're essentially talking about the safety or the protection of people who live there.
Right, the protection of the person who's living there, right? Let's look at the answer. Here we go. Okay. The poet relates stanza 1 and stanza 2 by looking at houses and hearts as heavily guarded strongholds. One can be breached and the other not so. Right? Think about that. In the first stanza, it talked about the fact that there was nobody there who has crossed the threshold yet, but there's just security measures. There's a wall, there's a barrier, right? But in the second one now, it's saying, okay, if someone even get through the wall, they still have another place to go through, which is the burglar bars and the net to catch them. So one is, let's go back on the answer. One is looking at the house itself, which has physical walls, and then the other is looking at the metaphorical heart that has barriers itself. Everybody understand?
Yes, sir.
All right. One moment.
Yes, sir.
All right, that's good. Let's do one more question on this section. Okay, good. Let's turn this on. 1 second. Okay, there we go. Okay. All right, let's continue. Okay, so now here's a part of the question that it's dependent on you knowing your parts of speech, right? And how to identify them in passages. So here's the question. It says, name the devices used by the poet in stanza 1 and give one example of each. So I want one person to give me one example of a device that is used. So people that live in these houses are not neighbors. They keep thick walls between them. The painted ones of blocks and mortar can be jumped by someone determined to get over, right? Any device that is noticeable here? Remember, you're looking for a simile, a metaphor, personification, anything?
Sir, when he says they keep thick walls between them, that doesn't just mean literal walls. That can also mean emotional walls.
Right, right. So tell me, what kind of device would that be?
A personification of the walls.
Right, because it's emotionally talking about a barrier between the heart, where the person try to keep anybody outside of who they are. Okay, good. Let's look at the answer. Scroll down here. So the devices used in the poet, used by the poet rather, in stanza 1 are metaphor and simile. There are several used, and here's some examples. Burglar bars of iron lace work. It's comparing burglar bars and iron and lace work, right? Flower beds like ornate hens as a simile, right? But the first one, as she said, was the one where the wall was personified to give emotions, right? So that's a personification there as well. So it's metaphor, simile, and personification, right? And that would typically, this section would be 10 marks the most, but the final question in this section would be, well, what is the point of the writer even speaking of this topic? What's the main point that they're trying to speak on? So most times, often than not, you're gonna use words that suggest that they're showing, highlighting, or bringing about. You wanna use those words to really detail a main point. So either you're gonna say the poet main point in the poem is to highlight, is to show, is to bring about, right? That people, in securing themselves from danger, lock themselves away from others so that each individual's house is like a little island. In other words, we cut off contact / feelings with persons who live next to us. So that's what I was talking about when the literal and the figurative meet, right? The literal was that, hey, we build walls and mortars to separate ourselves from everybody else, but then the emotional aspect is that we cut them off, right, from even contacting them, right? That would be typically 10 marks. It shouldn't take you more than 20 minutes, but you try to aim for less than 20 minutes so you have more time for the other sections. Any questions?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
For this second to last question,
That's second to last
where
question.
it said to identify the devices used in stanza 1,
Mm-hmm.
isn't burglar bars and flower beds again stanza 2?
Right. So if you remember, the question just says stanza 1, but again, there's a little misconception with the order, because really and truly, this was supposed to be one stanza, right? And then this is another stanza, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's actually, this entire section is a stanza, because if you realize, multiple times they made mention of stanza 1 and they use flower beds in there. So I'm guessing it's a little error on their side, because this is a stanza and then this is the second stanza.
Okay, sir.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna go to section B now. That was section, no, this was section B, sorry. Section A is gonna be the summary, which is for last, since we have been doing summary writing for a long time. So we're gonna go to section C now. Let me go back here. All right. So what I wanna do now is I'm gonna show you how exams are typically structured. All right, let's go here. Okay. Here we go. So this is the C6 English A exam outline, right? You can take a picture of it or I can give you the website after. Here we go. So, as I said, section 1. So this is paper 1. Let's go to paper 2 first, because that's the bigger task. So the duration is almost 3 hours. This 2 hours and 45 minutes, usually be 2.5. But the first question, as I said, is a summary writing, right? It's allotted 25 marks, was previously 30, right? And what they're marking for, and I always try to tell students this, it doesn't matter if you didn't get the main point. Make sure that you use correct grammatical form, right? And you punctuate your sentences correctly. Because if I give you nonsense, but it makes sense, I still get points. But if I give you things that make sense, but it look like nonsense, I won't give you any points because I can't understand it, right? So it's better you didn't summarize it correctly, but you syntax it or you have proper grammar than you just worry about grammar too much and you didn't even get the main points. So always strive for proper grammar and punctuation because that's the biggest thing that we mark for, right? Don't really stress too much on getting every single key detail, right? You're summarizing. Then the next point is that we're gonna look on the summary itself where you talk about the factual information clearly, concisely, and you use it in a written instruction. So A will be the carry most of the weight, and then B now, which is the summary, carry a little bit less. Then now section 2, as I said, was where you write a report or a minutes question. So in this one, it says, this question will require you guys to respond to a given stimulus, whether it may be an email, a letter, a report, an article, or a minute from a meeting. It's gonna ask you to respond to it. So typically, I'm gonna give an example after, but typically it's really asking you to put yourself in a position and assess what is happening. So if, for example, a child got an admissions letter, right, and they show you that the child got accepted, they're gonna ask you now to write an admissions letter for you applying to that school that the child want to go to, right? That's what we call an expository piece, where you put yourself in a position and apply based on what exactly the stimulus was, right? So the main objective is for you to obtain information correctly. So if you're gonna tell me that you got accepted for a school, tell me the date, who are you addressing it to, the proper formatting, right? And the most important details, right? So you need to communicate information clearly, adequately, and concisely. So it's typically almost like a summary in some cases. Now, the third part is where students struggle the most because it is one of the points where they had to actually reduce the marks, seeing that students always focus on it too much when it's not necessarily the most important part, which is where you get a picture or like a diagram and you're asked to write a short story about it. And I'm gonna show you some award-winning short stories on pictures and show you how really we look for marks. And the final section is an argumentative essay, right? Where you are awarded marks for the ability to communicate opinions clearly, right? And effectively persuade or dissuade the reader. So if, for example, it says, this school considers opening back physically, right? You're gonna choose a position if either persuading or dissuading and try to convince me as a reader your position. So let me tell you what we look for now. Again, you can take pictures or I can give you the notes after. So it's either, or the most important thing again is the grammar, the suitable punctuation, and paragraphing to convey meaning clearly, right? We call this syntax, where you structure your essay correctly. And the second part now is the information itself, right? So we take higher precedence on you structuring your essay rather than the information you supply in the essay, right? So you use appropriate language, you communicate factually, right? And if it's a letter you're writing, you use letter diction, which basically means the words typically used in letter like yours respectively or others, so forth. You use those types of words, right? And then now in section 3, marks will be awarded for the ability to give aesthetic satisfaction. So section 3 was the summary, the short story, where you're really giving me a emotional view on the picture. Let's go through quickly an example of the award-winning picture I was telling you about before we go into the section D. So let's go here. So this short story was written in 2004. It was about, let's see the picture really. It was about this picture of an old man, right? This is typically section B, worth 25 marks. So you give him this picture and it asks you to write an 800 word short story. So we're gonna look at this. Let's go here, and we're gonna read it in sections together and identify what are the applications or the different things we look for. Let's go here. Here we go. So we're gonna firstly read it first, and I'm gonna show you how you can actually take a formula from this. Right? So let's ask Melania, are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
All right, so you're gonna read the first page from it. Here we go.
Okay. He hungrily gulped in the fresh air. The clean tang of the sweet smell of rain still lingered in the atmosphere, and his nostrils welcomed it. It was something he knew. All the lush vegetation around him blended into a monotonous shade of green. Everything seemed so clean and new, almost rejuvenated. Although great, big tufts of gray lurked around ominously in the sky overhead, he felt calm, serene. Perhaps today he would remember which way home was. He had been walking for days, it seemed. His wet suit hung tiredly from his gaunt body and wait, can you scroll down?
Here we go.
His wetsuit hung tiredly from his gaunt body, and once he smothered his pangs of hunger assaulting his stomach. Noticing a speck at the end of the long winding road, his heartbeat accelerated. Was this home? He pushed his old bones to walk a little faster. Maybe he would be home soon. As he got closer and closer to the end of the road, the speck began to take on a definite form. With a laden heart, he realized that the shack was the only thing that stood out among the blur of green. Sir, can you scroll down?
Here we go.
On reaching the tiny shack, obviously abandoned since it was overrun by clinging green vines, he suddenly felt tired. All his strength seemed to be sucked away by the unseen forest, and he lowered his tired form on the grassy ground. Cradling his legs to his chest, he rocked back and forth, trying to draw some comfort from the soothing movement. That was the way Susan found him. His hair stood up in all different directions. Wrinkled creases marred his brow, and his whole posture was that of a frightened, confused man. A twig snapped under his feet, and he suddenly jumped up, his bones cracking in protest. The young woman before him smiled, a smile that seemed to be of a brilliant beam of sunlight in his otherwise melancholy world. Her rich chocolate brown eyes were filled with warmth and understanding. These eyes mesmerized him.
Sorry. There you go.
Mm, where am I? Right. These eyes mesmerized him. They seemed to reach out to him in an unspoken yet thankfully loud message. He found himself offering up one wrinkled, trembling hand, and without a thought, the woman grasped it, hung onto it as though it were something to be treasured, and he felt the warmth of their hand spread all throughout his entire body. That warmth combined with the warmth of her smile and the warmth of her beautiful dark eyes seemed to banish all the cold loneliness and bewilderment in his heart. Susan found her eyes welling up with tears and tried her best to remain standing. This time he had gone for so many days that it seemed like a miracle that he was alive. Home? He asked, his voice sounding as trusting and as innocent as that of a child. Yes, home, Grandpa. She reassured him as she led him slowly onto the road where her car was parked. His bearded face split into a grin as he
That should
patted
have
her
been,
car.
all right. That should have been good. Yeah.
He was so very thankful that he did not have to walk again. He was completely fed up of walking. As Susan saw his grateful smile, she once again cursed the disease that had robbed her grandfather of all his intelligence, vitality, and all control of life itself, leaving it in its wake with a scared, confused shell of an old man. Alzheimer's, the disease that her grandfather A renowned doctor had tried to fight but had lost.
Thank you very
Mm.
much. I almost cried from that one because that was a good story. All right, so that actually won an award, right? In 2004, a student from Trinidad and Tobago, Naparima Girls High School. So every year, what CSEC does is that whenever they get a batch of new submissions for English, they actually read through them, and the best one they nominate for an award, right, over the entire region. And this person very rightfully so deserved this award. So let's talk about quickly what exactly made this short story great, right? There's actually 8 things that this person followed, and you should follow to make sure you understand. So the first one, write it for me. Obviously, this person actually had contact with someone with Alzheimer's because it's a specific condition and a specific like characteristics for you to define it and engage with the reader for you to know so much about it. So this person wrote, here's a first tip, write about something you know well. So this person had experience with Alzheimer's or a family member with Alzheimer's, so they wrote about it. So they had experience with it. That's the first tip. It's easier, faster, and smarter to write about things that you know well, for the simple fact that you conserve and concisely write in an X amount of time, because you want to work with 45 minutes, right? When you choose a short story topic to write about, try to stick with a story that you can connect to in your own personal life, right? And or experience. When you do this, you don't have to reach in your imagination and ponder so much about it. It all becomes fluid, right? You already know so much about the story because you have lived it, so it's almost transcendent for you to even write about it. It's so easy. So that's what we try to focus on you to do. Write about things that you actually go through rather than you creating a thing from your imagination. Everybody understand?
Yes, sir.
The second tip is going to be write about one short event or short experience. So it doesn't have to be an entire life story, right? It could be a case where you actually just met someone with Alzheimer's that touched you personally. And that's why you kind of, I wouldn't say fabricate, but you extended the opportunity to write about it, right? So don't really focus on an entire life experience. If it's something that is concise and short, you can write about it and then extend it with your imagination. The reason why is because when you write about one event, one moment in time, right, you make your own story after that. So it can take place in a short amount of time or any place in your imagination because you already have attached yourself to it, right? It is easier, therefore, to start and end the story in 45 minutes. So don't limit yourself to an entire year's worth of experience. A short moment so you can actually finish within the time frame of 45 minutes. So that's write about one short event or short experience to really catch to the 45 minutes. The third one, make your sentences work hard, right? And I know that sounds weird. How do you make sentences work for you? Here's why. Every sentence in a short story has to work over time. It has to double up on what it does, right? It has to tell the story and build the mood or the theme to the story at the same time. It's not just, oh, you're describing the road stretching out towards him, right? You actually want your entire piece to have like a rolling snowball effect, where as you roll it down the hill, right, it gradually gets larger and larger until bam, it hits you. Same as the last sentence when they finally revealed the Alzheimer's. Let's go back here. Alzheimer's, the disease that her grandfather, a renowned doctor, had tried to fight but had lost. This doesn't seem far-fetched, and here's why. Because every sentence was connected or served a purpose, right? So make your sentences work for you. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yes, sir.
All right. And the fourth one, use short sentences. And also, I want to add on this vocabulary that you understand. Don't try to sound like those persons who try to use words that are not in their reach and end up shooting themselves in the foot. Because if you're trying to convince someone of something, right? You want to reach to their audience. So you want to use general words. Don't try to use uh, I'd say formal writing too much. You want to actually use short sentences and understood vocabulary terms, right? Because you want to reach to the general audience. That's why hip hop and all those music are so popular, because every culture can relate to it. It's very general. Okay. So when you use short sentences now, it's easier now to read the entire story, as well as you don't want the examiner themselves to slow down when they're trying to read what you're trying to say, because at that point they're going to think about it and infer meaning in what you're in what you're writing, right? If I can't figure out what you're writing about, I'm going to have some presuppositions and say this is what you're writing about. So you want to make sure that everything hits the nail perfectly by using short sentences and vocabulary. Understand? That's the fourth one. The fifth one is really not just vocabulary, but simple words. In the fact that if you're talking about a story, right? Not only do you want the vocabulary in terms of the word choices that you use, but based on your redundancy. So if you're going to talk about the fact that the old man is sitting on the wall, you don't have to tell me an entire scene on the thing that he's sitting on. Just simplify it and try to focus on the person themselves. So use simple words to really connect the situation. Let's let's go back over everything we said so far. The first one was to write about something you know well. Second one was to write about short events or short experience. The third one, make your sentences work hard for you. The fourth one, use short sentences. The fifth one, use simple words and vocabulary. And the sixth one, if you are not sure about something, don't use it, right? If you're not sure about, for example, putting quotation marks on what the person is saying, don't use it. Because at that point, as I said earlier, we have a grading scheme. Let's go back to the grading scheme. I'm not sure if I can find it now, but essentially, we take a higher precedence for grammar and punctuation over content. So if you misuse something now, that's actually an area where you will get deducted. So if you're not sure about something, again, don't use it. It's rather you try to restructure it in a more familiar way than you going into a field where you aren't familiar with. All right. The seventh one, when you're choosing your story, don't talk about violence or sex. CSEC don't like marking those type of content, right? They're rather more, again, general approach stories where it's either a sub story or an inspiring story. Don't talk about violence or sex. And the final one, leave time to proofread your own essay. Leave time to proofread your own essay. So when I said 45 minutes is what you're working with, that 45 minutes should have a breathing room now of 15 minutes so you can actually review your grammar and everything to make it to an hour, right? Because if you have 2 hours and 45 minutes, you want to spend at least 2 hours on section C and section D, since those are the parts where you're actually going to write a story. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yes.
All right. So those are my tips, my 8 tips. Just to make sure you have them, I'm going to ask quickly, Diksha, what was tip 2? Are you there?
Yes. Hi.
What was tip 2?
Okay, so I don't remember specifically what tip 2 was, but I remember everything in general.
All right, but I want you to write it down now, though, because I remember that the exam is not going to be until next year. So even though you know what it is right now, they're just saying the faintest ink or note is better than the greatest memory. So when you write down something in writing, it's better for you, because even if you are a genius, your brain can only tolerate so much, right? So the
Sir,
faintest,
you can type the tips in chat so we can just copy it out in our notebooks, please.
sure, sure. I'll put it on the website and send you guys the link after. Sure. Okay. Okay, so that's the short story part. Let's go to the argumentative essay now. All right. Let's go here. Okay, section D. Before we go into the example of an argumentative essay, I'm just gonna quickly go over how to write an argumentative essay. I know it's boring to keep on talking about how to write stories and essays and everything, but I feel like it's one of the most underrated disciplines, right? It's not a case where you're just taking notes, it's about a conversation, right? So in other words, there's really one, two, three, four, one, two, three. Right. There's really 5 aspects of an argumentative essay that you must have, right? The arguments. I don't know why that keeps switching up. Here we go. The arguments, the introduction, and the conclusion. But then now inside of your introduction, you must have the hook, right? And the thesis. So we're gonna go through the thesis first. What do you understand about a thesis, Karen?
Sir, it's like the sentence that explains what your entire essay or argumentative essay is going to be about.
Okay.
Basically gives like the reader the understanding of what they're about to read. So it's basically like an introduction of the essay.
Right. So that's good. But what I think you haven't been taught is where you put the thesis statement. Do you know where you put that exactly?
Yes, so like around one of the last sentences in the introductory paragraph.
Excellent. Right. We call that a closing section. Right. It's like a mini conclusion. So you put your thesis at the last sentence, and it's meant to state your position, not only the main point, but your position on those points. So if you're going to tell me that water is good for you, it helps you to rehydrate and it helps to cleanse your body, then you need to tell me that you advocate for X what about water itself. It's either you want water to be instilled more or filtered properly or whatever. Whatever your position is, make it clear when you're writing your thesis as well, not just the points.
Yes, sir. Like for the three, like if you have to make like 3 thesis statements, right?
Mhm.
Wouldn't like the first words of your body paragraphs be the theses?
Well, all right. So about that, the first sentence of your body paragraphs, remember, your body paragraphs are going to be in 3 sections. So the first body paragraph should be about your first point. Right.
Yes, sir.
Right. And the second one leads into the second point, and the third, if you have a if you have a third one, leads into the third point. Okay. So what we're gonna go through now is just finally an example of an argumentative essay once we've finished talking about the different sections. So here we go. The introduction is just going to be where you inform the reader on your position, and it must include 3 things, not just a thesis, but it must include a hook, whether it's a quote, right? A definition or anything that means to capture the attention. Then you need to have a background where you give me some basics about your hook, simply basically telling me the any prerequisite knowledge that will help me to understand it further. And then finally, your thesis, which would be your position and your points. Then in your argument now, which is your body, as Karen and I was talking about, you're gonna have like, if you have 3 points, you'd have 3 bodies to really concisely discuss 3. But in each of the 3 paragraphs, you need to make a claim, which is your points, right? And provide evidence to support it. Evidence can come in the form of statistics, data, testimonial, anything that could express a view and refute your opponents. Right, so we're gonna go to an example now. I know you guys are probably yawning, so let me just quickly go to the example. Here we go. And as I said, I'm gonna give you the collection of these websites after class because it's very important. Right, here we go. 1 second. Here we go. Perfect. Here we
Sir,
go.
does this class end at 2:30?
Right, 2:30 we're ending. So, sample argumentative essay. What I'm gonna do, I'm going to give you a sentence and you're gonna create quickly just your main points for me. Shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes. The sentence is, Sugary drinks should not be sold in schools. Right after me? Sugary drinks should not be sold in schools. Now we're gonna break apart. So let me open back this the how to write an argumentative essay. Open a new tab. Here we go. And we're gonna make sure that we um align ourselves to answer each section correctly. So the first thing you need to look for, guys, let's go here, is the introduction. Let's dissect into the introduction. So when you get that sentence, sugary drinks should not be sold in school, the first thing you need to look for is a hook. So one sentence that is meant to capture my attention about sugary drinks and why should they not be drinking in school, right? It's either, for example, you can start by saying, for example, say goodbye to sugary drinks and prepare yourself for a healthy lifestyle, something like that, right? So I'm just gonna give you 2 minutes to write a hook, and then when I hear each person's hooks, right? So remember, it could be a quote, a sentence, a joke, not really a joke, but anything that is meant to capture my attention, really. Understand? 2 minutes. Melania, I see that Priyanka is having Wi-Fi issues, so I'm gonna give you the link to this recorded class, and can you just make sure that she gets it after, please?
Sure, sir. I'll send it to her.
All right, thank you.
Sir, I had a question about the SBA.
Great, this is a perfect time. Let me hear it.
All right, sir. So I did the written report, the plan of investigation, and the 3 reflections, right? So like, what's next? What do I do next?
Prepare for your oral presentation.
Sir, could you like send me like the guidelines for that, please, like to my
Sure.
email?
I can send you in your email, right? So just send me an email now, right?
Yes, I just did like before when class started with the corrections of the SBA.
Okay, good. Because in your oral presentation, all you're really gonna do is just to take out your artistic side and really try to get my view on
Sir,
art.
what if there is no artistic side?
Well, you sound like a gamer. You play games?
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay, good. So you're gonna use that gamer artistic view and really just try to communicate why you even did this topic in your SBA. So it's
Okay.
you're gonna talk about, like, for example, Fortnite and how they branched off into X, Y, and Z and how it
Sir,
really.
but like Fortnite's like really bad, you know, like it's got boring.
So what games do you play?
So I play like NBA, I play Madden, and like I play COD sometimes.
All right.
Sometimes I play Fortnite, but you know, it depends on the mood.
And what's the SBA topic? Let me see if I can relate.
Sir, mental illness,
Mental illness. Perfect.
the
You can
glaring
relate to the fact that,
of
for
mental
example,
illness on society.
yeah, so you can relate to the fact that NFL players actually, on average, have the most mental illness based on the simple fact that it's a head contact sport. So it's either going to talk about like your favorite NFL player, like my favorite NFL player is Antonio Brown. He suffered like a huge head injury and he's never been the
Yes,
same.
sir. Sir, mine's Drew Brees because he was a quarterback for the
Yeah,
Saints.
he's
Like
coming back this week, by the way.
yeah, I know, sir. I know.
Yeah. So you could like talk about anybody that you know in the NFL that got like a head injury, and just really highlight how it affected their performance or how
Like
it
the
changed
people
them as
around
a person.
them. Yes, sir. I get
Right,
it.
right. See, there you go.
So how long is it supposed to be? 3 minutes?
Yeah, could be two
And
to
is
three
that
words.
supposed to be in the SBA? Like the words are supposed to be in the SBA?
As in your oral presentation,
Yes, sir. Like, are the words supposed to be on the document of the SBA?
it doesn't have to be no, because typically no.
Okay, all right.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And I think that's enough time now for the hook. Are you guys finished with your hooks? Yeah. Hello. Anybody with your hook yet? I'll give you one more moment.
Sir, I only have 3 sentences. I don't think it's enough.
We can repeat that.
I said I only have 3 sentences. I don't think it's enough.
No. Your hook is supposed to be one sentence. Remember, I said that
Yeah,
we're
but
going
I
to
was
take it.
leading up to the hook, sir.
Yeah, because remember, I said we're going to go through it step by step. So the first thing is to write one sentence to grab my attention. And then you're going to let me hear it. So we're breaking apart the introduction in steps first. So tell me what your hook is. All right, let me create a hook just to give an idea. So I could say, for example, I could give you the fact that sugar. Wait, what's the topic again? Sugary drinks. Sugary drinks should not be sold in school. Let me give an example. Excessive intake of sugary drinks increases the risk towards diabetes, heart disease, and dental cavity, and thus the drink should not be sold in school. That's my hook. Simple. It could be a light-hearted one or a serious approach, like you see here, where I talk about the fact that you could die from taking these sugar drinks, right? And that's why they should not be in school. That hooks anybody's attention. Understand?
Sir,
Yeah.
I finished my hook and it's really similar to the one that you just said.
All right. Let me hear it. Let me hear it.
But it's kind of okay, sure.
Mhm.
Alright, so my hook is if I got one sugary drink every day in school, I would probably get diabetes, heart disease, or even dental cavity.
Right. That's actually really good. It's really good. All
Thank
right.
you.
I like that one. I like that one. Anybody else?
Sir, you could please give me the topic. I want to make one up right now.
All right. Let's show you the topic again. Sugary drinks should not be sold in schools. Yes.
Sir, I had. Did you know that drinking just one 12-ounce bottle of soda every day could lead to heart disease, dental cavities, and diabetes?
Yeah. A question could be asked that really makes you say, "Well, I know it, but why do I still drink it?" So it actually grabs my attention as well. That's a good one as well.
Oh,
All
sir, I have one
right.
too.
All right.
Sir, it's not about like school in particular. So it could be, do you really think that sugary drinks could be sold when that one drink could reduce your lifespan?
Right. And then you could put a comma and say how much is wait, I can't I had a good one a while ago because after you said that, then we could say how much is a can really worth something of your life? Like is $2 worth X amount
Yes,
of time
sir.
of your
So
life?
I'm gonna say this afterwards, like somewhere in the essay.
Right,
A bottle
exactly.
of Coke may be worth $1, while a bottle of freshly squeezed orange juice could be $5. You rather be on the safe side and spend the extra $4 than drink the toxic waste that is going into your body.
And reduce your life by X
Reduce your
amount of time.
lifespan by
Exactly.
multi years.
Yeah, I like that one too. Arian, are you there? Let's
Yes,
see.
sir. So
Uh-huh.
my hook is, did you know that sugary drinks is one of the major leading cause of diabetes?
Right. And the crazy thing about it is that diabetes is still it's a touchy subject and people don't like to talk about it. So when you actually use it as a hook, people don't regularly get tested for diabetes, right? So when you ask a question or just bring up a fact regarding diabetes and sugar drinks, it'll obviously lead people to question whether or not they're actually healthy, right? So that's good. Now let's go look at the next section of your introduction, which is the background. So this requires you to give some basics, right, about your hook. Simply answer why you have decided to talk about the subject in its entirety. So let me give you one example first, right? According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, the number of kids who suffer the condition has increased to 60% over the last decade. That's astronomical, right? Just hold on. Just because, where is it? I lost it. Okay, here we go. Just because the kids are allowed to buy soda and other sugar drinks in school, right? So that's your reason now for writing about sugar drinks. That's your background. There's over 60% of children have been diagnosed, etc. And the primary reason for this is because they are allowed to be sold in schools. So quickly, 2 minutes again, just give me another variation of this as your background for why you need to talk about sugar drinks. Whether you're gonna give me a stats in Jamaica or any little known fact about diabetes and why it really shouldn't even be a conversation. They should be banned, really. All right, 2 minutes. All right, almost finished, everybody. Hello.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right, that should be enough time now. Let me hear what you have. Let's begin with Karen. Karen, are you there? Right. So roll call then. If you don't reply, I'm gonna put you in the waiting room for a moment. Right. Okay. Arian, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Let's hear what you have.
All right, sir. So, sir, should I read from beginning?
Yeah, let's read from the beginning and then we can hear it.
All right. So, did you know that sugary drinks is one of the major leading cause of diabetes? What exactly is diabetes? Diabetes is the condition in which the body does not properly process food for use as energy. If one drinks a bottle of a sugary drink each day, you're likely to have diabetes and even heart disease. Sugary drinks can also cause obesity and tooth decay. Sugary drinks should definitely not be sold in school, and listed below is why.
Mm. All right. So your background was, I think, 2 to 3 sentences. So that is not bad. So I'd say make one of the sentences be run on. So where you said the list below explains why, put a semicolon after that sentence. I mean, before that sentence begun. Okay, you want to make it a run on sentence there. So then now you can list the points in your thesis statement.
Okay, sir.
All right. So let's go back to Diksha. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's hear your background.
Sure, but I have like a question before I say mine.
Mm-hmm.
My background's only like one sentence. Is that fine? Or does it have to be more?
No, that's fine. Because if you realize here, we only have really one sentence where you talk about the statistics of 60%.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So my background is, according to harvard.edu, people who consume sugary drinks regularly have a 26% greater risk of developing type 2 diabetes and a 20% higher risk of getting heart disease.
Excellent. No, but I want you to add on to that now, because since it's one sentence,
Yeah, yes.
look at how they tied into that one sentence. They said this statistic is an alarming one. However, more importantly, sugary drinks should not be sold in school because of three major issues. Right? That's how you lead into the thesis statement. So you can just add another sentence to that now, talking about the statistics, saying that it shocked you, right? Or it's alarming, or it raises a lot of concern. And that's why these are the three major issues with why it should not be sold in schools. Understand?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Let's go to now Melania.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Did you know that drinking just one 12-ounce bottle of soda every day could lead to diabetes, heart disease, and even dental cavities? According to DRG Jamaica, 1 in 3 Jamaicans aged 15 to 74 years have diabetes. This translates to 13.6 of the overall population.
That's good. That's a good one. That 13.6% is actually a lot more if you relate it to the fact that of the population, the persons who are more susceptible to get it is really only like 20%, right? So that's actually a good statistic. So what you could do now, same thing as I said for Diksha, where you just put one more sentence describing the statistic. If it's an alarming one or it raises concern, or the simple the fact that this population pool, right after me, this population pool is actually, right, a smaller sample for those persons who were actually observed. So it raises a lot of concern. Because of the persons that actually go to school, Melania, it's less than 25%, that's for sure. So if you have 13% of the population, right, that's a very high number of that 25%. Okay.
Sir, may I read mine, please? No.
Yeah.
All right, one second. All right. Do you really think it would be a wise decision for schools to sell sugary drinks in school when there are many negative effects of the drink? No, I don't think so. It is known that the bad things are also cheaper, while the things that are good for the body tend to be a little more expensive. Decaying of teeth and heart disease are two of the major causes of an excessive use of sugary drinks. Schools need to build their students to become responsible adults, not reduce their lifespan.
Right, right. So what you could do now, since that was a little bit more of a hook, and then the last part was a little bit of a statistic, now you could say, like for example, case in point, this high school, or case in point, this statistic talks about it further, right? So that was an excellent introduction, and it seeps into the background. But now give me some data. Just one data, like how Melania and Diksha said about the percentages. Tell me something about the schools themselves and their percentages with the sugary drinks or something like that. Okay, and that would be a perfect background. All right. So the only person we haven't heard from is Fraser. Is your internet stable now?
Yeah, sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. 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 Want to stick to that New Year's resolution to be healthier, then put down that soda and start downing the water. It has become quite evident over the years that there has been an increase in people with diabetes, cavities, and other health problems. This topic needs to be addressed, especially in schools, so that the future generations can plan and practice for a healthier future.
Right. I like that. No, I'm gonna make a little edit there. So when you said it's a lot of persons that have diabetes, actually give me a fact that says according to X amount of according to Dash, X amount of persons have diabetes, right? Okay, you want to give me a stat now so I can follow
Okay.
on and say, you know what, that's true. That's true. And that would be good. So I'm pretty sure you guys got the hang of the background now.
So, other question. You
Uh-huh.
said that we need to have stats in the argumentative essay, right? But
Mhm.
it seems like we're not going to be able to have any sources. So, we like just make up a number.
No, I'm glad you asked that question too. So what it actually requires of you, because it's actually a sensible question you ask. How am I supposed to give stats and data when I'm in an exam? That's where your knowledge, like your background knowledge comes into play. So if you've been doing English language, you would have been exposed, for example, in your SBA on research, right? Because they're never going to ask you an argumentative essay that isn't close to a SBA topic. So sugary drinks and diabetes is close to physical fitness, which is a SBA topic. So if you've been doing English correctly, you should have been doing some research and you probably have a good generic background to answer any question that comes to you, right?
Okay. But like, it won't have to be exact, right?
It's not exactly. It doesn't have to be exactly like data, for example, like 45% or so forth. You could just say according to a source that you've read, right? And that would be good enough. Just to make sure you have a little third party approval. Okay. Now the last part of it is gonna be your thesis statement. So go back to the thesis statement. So it's gonna be the last sentence, and it's gonna take less than a minute to do because you've done the hook, you've done the background. It is gonna write now one sentence that tells me your 3 points you're gonna talk about in your body. Let me give you an example. In this one, we have more importantly, sugar drinks should not be sold in schools because of 3 major issues: obesity risks, uncontrolled behaviors, and caffeine disturbances. So this is our thesis statement, right? You don't have to use conjunctive words such as however. More importantly, you could just say in essence, or just start it off by listing them. There are 3 major issues that are attached to this, and they are obesity risk, uncontrolled behaviors, and caffeine disturbances. Okay? Now, that was the introduction. So the body now is going to be where each paragraph talks about 1 point. So for the first point, for example, let's give you an example of that paragraph. Kids who take excessive sugary drinks are at risk of becoming obese, right? So that means we're talking about the first point, which is obesity risk, right? So you want to talk about your points in order. So if you listed obesity risk first, your first paragraph should be on obesity. Then the second be on uncontrolled behaviors. What exactly is uncontrolled behaviors and how does caffeine or sugar drinks contribute to that? And then the third one is going to be on caffeine disturbances. Okay, so it says kids who take excessive sugar drinks are at risk of becoming obese. According to the World Health Organization, a single bottle of soda has at least 18 tablespoons of sugar. This is equivalent to 240 calories. This is too much for the school-going kids going school, sorry, that's a little error there, to digest or assimilate into the body. In the long run, it contributes to fast weight gain. Obesity exposes kids to cardiovascular diseases and low self-esteem. Nevertheless, if there are restrictions as to how many bottles every kid should buy per day, then the risk will be reduced. So, taking this formula, right, and this is a formula, you're going to now write a paragraph on uncontrolled behaviors for me, right? Because this paragraph was about obesity risk. Let's dissect how exactly you write it. So the first sentence talk about who have uncontrolled behaviors, right? Kids who have uncontrolled behaviors run the risk of, no, kids who take sugary drinks run the risk of becoming hyperactive and having uncontrolled behaviors, something of that sort. And then now you would say, according to or based on something that could prove it. So for example, the World Health Organization, right? Tell me now something about why this is proven. Say, for example, you could tell me what the definition of hyperactivity is, right? Based on the Webster's dictionary. Hyperactivity means, right, too much intake of sugar, which results in excitedness in the nerve endings, something like that, right? And then now after you've given me that definition, you talk about the definition and say, well, this is too much for a child that's going through puberty already when their body is changing. They don't need so much supplementary energy as that could affect them in their long-term growth, right? So quickly, just write one paragraph on uncontrolled behaviors, and then we're going to go into after caffeine disturbances, and then that's it for today. All right, I'm going to give you 3 minutes or 5 minutes because you need to research one source. It's either going to take a dictionary definition of effect of uncontrolled behaviors, whether it's hyperactivity, OCD, anything like that, right? And then now talk about it after and say why it isn't good for a child to be having this exposure. Everybody understands? Does everybody understand?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to give you 5 minutes. I'm going to check back with you. All right. Are you guys finished? Can I get a little confirmation if you're almost finished or not?
Sure, we have 1 more minute.
All right, sure. All right, that should be enough time. Let's quickly get into the section. Let me hear from Karen. What do you have? She's gonna read everything in its entirety so I can hear it. Karen, are you there? All right, I'm putting him in the waiting room. Fraser, are you there?
Oops, yes, sir.
All right, let me hear what you have.
Am I reading from the beginning or just the
Yeah, from the
paragraph?
beginning, so I can just get a whole feel for it.
Okay, I didn't change I still haven't added the part where you told me to add like a statistic for the one part. So
Right,
that's not
right.
changed.
Okay,
Okay.
that's good. Yeah.
Okay. Want to stick to that New Year's resolution to be healthier? Time to put down the soda and start downing the water. It has become quite evident over the years that there has been an increase in people with diabetes, cavities, and other health problems. This is a topic that should be addressed, especially in schools, so that future generations can plan and practice for a healthier future. The three major, The three major issues are obesity risk, uncontrolled behaviors, and caffeine disturbances. So, okay. Okay, so I'm just gonna pretend the first paragraph is already the one that's on the screen. Okay. The second risk of kids consuming too many sugary drinks is the chance of experiencing uncontrolled behaviors. According to the Oxford Learner's Dictionary, a sugar rush can be defined as a sudden short period of extra energy from eating or drinking sugary foods. This will increase a child's heart rate, meaning the child would have the constant need to move. If a child were to consume sugary drinks daily in school, that child would constantly be hyper. This would cause the child to focus less in class and ultimately would begin to perform poorly in schools. Hold on. Sorry.
That's all right.
Ultimately, if sugary drinks were reduced in schools, then the chances of these uncontrolled behaviors would begin to decrease.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, good. So there's two things I have to say about this. The first one is I like the fact that the way you structured it, even though you didn't give a statistic per se, like facts or anything of that sort, the way you flowed through why and then what it leads to was good. And the second one is that when you're finished, I want you to send me so I can give you a review on how to really, for example, use different words or to communicate stronger. So we'll call that clarity and engagement. So when you send it to me, I'm going to color code it for you. Whenever you see a red line underneath the words, that means punctuation wasn't there. When you see a green line, that means I'm going to give you a different word to use to strengthen the engagement. When you see purple, so I think I should just write it because it's going to be a little bit to remember. So let me write it down. I'm just put it in chat and just keep it in mind when you see the different colors on your paper.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Let me go in chat. Here we go. So as I said, when you see, go on everyone in meeting. So when you see red, comma, that means correction, whether it's grammar or punctuation. When you see green, that means engagement. So a stronger word such as synonyms could be used, or otherwise engagement means, that means engagement. When you see purple, that means delivery. So if you're talking to someone and you're trying to convince them, that means it can be a little bit of an informal writing. So you can use you, us, and therefore, right? So that's what we mean delivery, who you're talking to, who do you deliver the message to. So purple means delivery. And finally, it's blue means clarity. whether you're writing in the past, present, or future tense, and also if you wrote passively or actively. So passively basically mean where you said that something was done rather than saying that someone did something. So if I said that the bottle was pushed, right? The better way to really write that is to actively say, I pushed the bottle, right? Because that
Okay.
gives me clarity as to who did it. So whenever you see those colors, just keep that in mind. So red means correction, green means engagement. When you see purple, that means delivery, and blue means clarity. All right, good. So send it to me as well as Melania. Can I hear yours, Melania?
So sorry, I wrote 3 points, but only wrote on one so far.
All right, it's fine. I'm here.
I'll start from the beginning.
Mhm.
Did you know that drinking just one 12-ounce bottle of soda every day could lead to diabetes, heart disease, and even dental cavities? According to DIG Jamaica, 1 in 3 Jamaicans aged 15 to 74 have diabetes. This translates to 13.6% of the overall population. This alone is very alarming and is why schools should not sell sugary drinks. It leads to the 3 major sicknesses: diabetes, metabolic disorders, and heart disease. Drinking high amounts of sugar sweetened beverages, such as sodas, can have various adverse impacts. These range from increased chances of tooth decay to a higher risk of type 2 diabetes, metabolic disorders like type 2 diabetes, none of which are healthy. This can slow down the development of the brain as well as pubescent growth. Diabetes can cause an increased risk of development of cancer in the liver as well as in the pancreas. Did you know that women who have diabetes are 27% likelier to develop breast cancer compared with healthy women? And I was going into my second paragraph, which
All right,
is
that's
what are
good.
metabolic disorders.
Okay, good. So what I have to say now, if you look at the screen, remember that when we went into the first point, which is obesity risk, where we put the statistic was at the upper section, where you said according. So you write one sentence first, and then you say the stat. But then with yours, just move up your statistic because I see that it's close to the end. Put it right after the first sentence. So you say, according to the source, women are likelier to get X, Y, and Z, and that's why you believe from now in schools it should be removed. All right, and then that would be
Okay.
a good paragraph. So just wrap up on the second, the third one, which is caffeine disturbance, right? Send it to my email if you don't have it and put it in chat. D Thompson. I think you have my email, but just to make sure, I'll put it in chat. D Thompson at Hines.school. As well as if you're SBA, if you still are, if you've reached a certain distance with your SBA and you want some revision, send it to me as well, right? Because I'm gonna start working on Karen's and others SBA right now. So for Melania, I know you're in senior 4, so you probably have some questions on the SBA, so you can send it to me and I can review it for you. But you only have one more paragraph to write, which is about the caffeine disturbance. And then now, next class, we can pick up on how to write a proper conclusion for your SBA, for your argumentative essay. Sounds good?
Yes, sir.
All right. So thank you guys for a great class. I'm really honored that you took the time out of your day to come and participate in class. I hope it was good for you as well. If you missed anything or if you joined late, I'm gonna pause the recording now and I'm gonna put it on the school's YouTube page. All right, pause.
All right, sir.